If you closed your eyes and stood in an ancient forest on Earth, what would you hear? You would hear the soft friction of cellulose, the whisper of leaves rustling, wood groaning under the wind, the dull thud of a branch falling onto wet moss. But here, the wind does not whisper. The wind chimes. We are back in the oven world. The ambient temperature borders on 800 degrees Celsius, and before us lies a vastness that our mind insists on labeling as vegetation, but which our ears identify as something quite different. Listen, that high-pitched, resonant, almost musical sound is the song of a billion crystal needles vibrating in unison. There is no wood here, no bark. There is nothing to rot. You are walking through the great glass forest. On Earth, we associate glass with static fragility. A window is solid until it breaks. A goblet is rigid until it shatters. Our intuition tells us that a tree made of crystal would be an absurd sculpture, unable to withstand the slightest breeze without turning to dust. But that intuition is a prejudice born of the cold. At 20 degrees Celsius, silicate is a stone, but at 800 degrees, stone dreams of being a fluid. To understand how this infernal garden blooms, we must forget carbon biology. Carbon builds with Lego bricks, stable, predictable chains that form cellulose and lignin. Here, the architecture of life is dictated by inorganic polymers. The base of these trees is not wood, but a family of chemical compounds called siloxanes and silanes. Imagine a molecular chain where silicon and oxygen alternate, again and again. COCO. The trunk of a Silidendron is not solid. It is a composite structure, similar to reinforced concrete or high-tech fiberglass. Its core is formed by pure quartz fibers, incredibly resistant to tension. Thanks to the extreme ambient heat, this matrix is not rigid. It is viscoelastic. It behaves like a dense muscle. It allows the 30-meter-tall trunk to bend, twist, and dance with thermal convection currents without breaking. It is glass that bends, a jewel that breathes. If you touched its bark and survived the burn, you wouldn't feel the roughness of oak. You would feel a smooth, warm, slightly oily surface. The tree constantly sweats a liquid silicate resin that vitrifies upon contact with the cooler air. Let's look up. There are no green leaves, there cannot be. Chlorophyll is a delicate molecule, a ring of magnesium and carbon that would disintegrate here instantly. This forest does not seek sunlight, it seeks heat. The leaves of these trees are translucent panels, thin as cigarette paper, made of biological mica and doped metal oxides. They hang from the branches like ornaments on a Gothic chandelier. Their function is not photosynthesis, but thermosynthesis. But there is an even more fascinating adaptation, one that gives this forest its voice. Quartz has a property called piezoelectricity. If you hit it or bend it, it generates an electric charge. Glass leaves are designed to vibrate. They do not avoid the wind, they court it. Imagine the implication. On Earth, plants endure the weather. Here, plants need the violence of the weather. A day of absolute calm on this planet would be a famine for the forest. That is why the forest never falls silent. Silence is death. Noise is life. The cycle of life here does not end in rot. On Earth, when a tree falls, fungi and bacteria decompose it. But there are no microbes that eat glass. So, what happens when a glass tree dies? It doesn't rot, it shatters. When an old Silidendron loses its flexibility, the next storm makes it explode. It doesn't simply fall, it bursts into a rain of transparent knives. And yet, this is necessary. Fragmentation returns silica to the soil. Walking here is impossible for us. Even with heat-protective suits, the ground itself would try to dismember us. But for the inhabitants of this world, this ground is a buffet. Remember the crystallis. They are the gardeners of this hell. The barometer drops. Atmospheric pressure begins to fluctuate. A storm front approaches. On Earth, a storm is wind and water. Here it is wind and resonance. Listen to how the sound of the forest changes. The soft tinkling accelerates. It becomes a hum, then a howl. Piezoelectric discharges become visible. Arcs of static electricity jump from leaf to leaf, branch to branch, illuminating the forest from within with blue and violet flashes. The forest not only sounds, now it glows with the energy of its own excitation. But there is a limit. The wind reaches 300 kilometers per hour. The vibration frequency of the thinnest trunks enters destructive resonance. The purge begins, first 1, then 10, then 1,000. The weakest trees cannot withstand the frequency. They burst. And yet, watch the survivors. The great Silidendrons, the elders of the forest, bend until they touch the ground, anchoring themselves with roots that are cables of geological tension. They resist. They absorb the energy. They strengthen. There is a terrible beauty in sterility. As humans, we look for green. We look for soft. We look for places that tell us, here you can rest. Here you can live. The glass forest tells us otherwise. It tells us, you are not welcome. You are not needed. You are not compatible. It is a garden that requires no water, no sun, no mercy. It is a masterpiece of inorganic chemistry existing in perfect harmony with an environment we consider hell. Sometimes, the greatest lesson the universe offers us is not that we are alone. It is that life is much more creative, much more resilient, and much stranger than the small sample of carbon and water we carry in our veins. The universe is a vast art museum, and some of its most beautiful exhibits are behind glass we must not touch. This was the glass forests. We have seen an ecosystem that functions as a symphony orchestra and an industrial shredder at the same time. It is a place of supreme beauty, but it is a beauty that needs no spectators. The glass forest would exist just as majestically without us. This poses the explorer's dilemma. Does a landscape have value if no one can walk in it without dying? Or is its lethality what makes it sacred? What do you think? Should we try to terraform these worlds or leave them untouched? Fragility is not an option in this universe. If this analysis resonated with you, hit like to feed the algorithm. And don't stray too far. In the next chapter, we will meet predators that hunt using pure electricity. Subscribe to survive.